Their microphones on, please. Good evening. The hour being 6:30 p.m. on Monday, April 11th, 2022. I'd like to call to order the Brookfield Village Board meeting. Would everyone please join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Bridget, can we have a roll call for the meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark?
Here.
Trustee Cote?
Here.
Trustee Hendricks? Here. Trustee Conroy?
Here.
Trustee LeClere?
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Here.
And President Garvey.
Here. Thank you, Bridget. The first item of business tonight is a public hearing, so I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
The motion to open the public hearing was made by Trustee Cote, second by Trustee LeClere. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Here.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee
Aye.
Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The public hearing is beginning at 6:31 p.m. Bridget, could you please call a roll for the public hearing?
Trustee Ketchmark?
Here.
Trustee Cote?
Here.
Trustee Hendricks?
Here.
Trustee Conroy?
Here.
Trustee LeClere?
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Here.
President Garvey.
Here. Thank you. The purpose of this public hearing is to take public comments regarding the proposal to sell general obligation alternate revenue source bonds in an amount not to exceed $2.5 million to pay the cost of improving the waterworks and sewage systems of the village, including but not limited to undertaking the village's water meter transmission unit replacement program. Would any of the trustees make any comments for the record at this time? Seeing no comments from the trustee, at this time, would I ask village staff to offer any additional comments they may have? Okay. Has the village received any written comments regarding the proposed bond issue?
No, they have not.
Okay. At this time, anyone in the audience who wishes to comment regarding this matter, please, is there anyone on this side that wants to comment on this matter? Is there anybody on this side? Okay, hearing no public comment, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at 6:33 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Trustee LeClere, second by Trustee Kaluzny. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, the public hearing is adjourned at 6:33 p.m. Going back to the regular village board agenda, we don't have any appointments or presentations. At this point, the agenda, again, would allow any public comment related to any items beyond the public hearing. Is there anyone on this side that wants to make any public? Sir, if you could please come to the microphone and give us your name.
Good evening. My name is, Dennis Farnham. I live on Southview, 8941. Moved here in 2016. I understand the village may finance sewer work for homeowners. I'm one of those people who just recently did the work. And I was curious if there'd be any help for people who just recently did the sewer improvements. I don't know if that has even been passed, if that financing has even been passed.
There is an item on our agenda tonight on our regular business where we're going to, I'm going to ask for approval for an ordinance approving the plan to administer this program created by staff. It's one of the first items, so there'll be a motion in a second, there'll be discussion, and we might discuss the request to go retroactive at that point. So if you could stick around for a few minutes, you'd probably hear the discussion on that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay.
Second thing is sidewalks. I live on the corner, so I've got a lot of sidewalk. I've already replaced several squares with the 50/50 program, but a lot of the rest of them are just uneven. Does the village ever grind, something cheaper than replacing all the squares? Because I can't afford to do the whole corner, but
Sure.
shoveling is a major headache with all those little lips.
If you want to, after the meeting, Carl, could you turn around, Carl Mules, our Public Works Director, if you want to see him whenever you're leaving this evening, he could
Okay.
maybe fill you in as to what the possibilities are. I'll get the address and, give you some information from there.
Alrighty. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming
All
out.
right, good night.
Anyone on this side have any public comment? Okay. We'll move on to the rest of the board agenda at this point. Reports of special committees. Trustee Cote, please.
I would like to make a motion to approve corporate warrant dated April 11, 2022 in the amount of $831,864.74.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Trustee Cote, second by Trustee Hendricks. Any highlights or anything you want to point out, Trustee
Not this
Cote?
time, no.
Do any board members have any questions or comments about the warrant? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
In regards to DPW, the street sweeping has begun. It began on 4/4, so please pay attention to your parking, go outside, check the parking signs for your street so that you know which days are parking in front of your house and days you should not be parking in front of your house. Alley grading requests are being completed via C-Click Fix. The water groups have been busy, our water department has been busy, hydrant repairs, B-box repairs, and catch basin inlet repairs. The forestry division has been completing tree trimming requests through C-Click Fix. They are wrapping up their tree removals in the next few weeks, and the tree planting program will begin in the near future, weather permitting. In regards to the library, April is National Finance Literacy Month. This is the campaign to promote the importance of fiscal education and the consequences of poor money management. There are a lot of programs available. Please see the website for the library to see other details and what the schedule is for these. And again, if you or someone you know is struggling or needed help, please call 1-800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. If you know a veteran who is in need, a veteran who has troubles, transitioning from overseas, from deployment, coming home is a very difficult thing. You can come by, see me, have them contact me, or they can go up to the VFW. They're open Tuesday through Sunday. Come in anytime after 4 o'clock. Or the VA offers a VA coaching where they have licensed care professionals free to veterans. If you call 1-888-823-7458 Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., they will address or try to help you address your issues to the best of their abilities. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Trustee Cote. Trustee Conroy, Chamber of Commerce, please.
Yeah, Chamber of Commerce, just a few things to note on coming up on the calendar. First of all, this month's business lunch will be on Thursday, April 21st at Beach Avenue Barbecue at 12 o'clock. All are welcome. A couple things coming up next month. Wanted to note May 19th, ribbon cutting and open house for Brookfield Oral Surgery on Broadway. And then shortly after that, on Sunday, May 22nd, Share Food, Share Love will be hosting an open house from 1 to 3 p.m., kind of showcasing their new facility there. And then June 4th, going to be a big day in town. It's opening day for the farmers market. There will also be the Broadway Art Walk from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And there is a rumor that there possibly might be some dancing in the street afterwards. More to come on that. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Trustee Conroy. Trustee Hendricks, Planning and Zoning.
I have no report, but I hope that Trustee Kaluzny will talk about the controlled burn in her report.
Oh, I will.
Thank you, Trustee Hendricks. Trustee Ketchmark, anything under administration?
No report.
Trustee LeClere, Parks and Recreation.
Yes, just a reminder, the Candy Cane Park grand opening ribbon cutting is going to be May 21st at noon. Stevie and staff have been hard at work on the summer concerts, 4th of July parade, and the movies in the park, and that, kind of our summer series. Next week, we have our next rec board meeting, and I know the rec board is going to be working with them on choosing some bands and all that. So that meeting is April 19th, 6:30, right here in the courtroom, and then we should have our whole summer series after that all set up. So it's kind of exciting. Well, a lot of people want to get out and dance in the streets and, so have a cocktail. But that ends my report.
Thank you. And Stevie and the Parks and Recreation Special, they did a great job. We hosted the Easter Bunny this yesterday, actually. I think it was Saturday in the basement of the Village Hall. There was the Easter Bunny made a stop in Brookfield at this very busy time of year and was greeted to a lot of kids and their family, and they had an Easter egg hunt in the park, and it was very well attended, so thank you to Stevie and her staff for that. Trustee Kaluzny, Conservation and Beautification.
Yes, with conservation, I'll start with the much anticipated controlled burn, which we finally might have the right weather conditions tomorrow to burn some things, which would be great. So it sounds like maybe the Oak Savannah might be the only place that might have to wait a little bit. It's still a little bit too wet. It's been raining there a lot. And so having the right weather conditions for that burn has been a little challenging the last few weeks, but they will do the bioswale on Monroe, some spots in Ellert Park and some other places, but the Oak Savannah may have to wait. But if you want to get out tomorrow and not get in the way of the fire, but watch it from a distance that is safe, I'm sure someone will let you. The Conservation Commission is planning some Earth Day events with the library next week on the 20th in the evening. There's an event about getting involved with conservation, and they're hosting an alternative fuel car show event in the library parking lot on April 23rd. So if you're thinking about an electric vehicle or a hybrid, there'll be all sorts of cars there with residents that own them that can tell you about their experience. So that should be fun. And then they also had a special meeting on April 6th to continue working on the sustainability plan for the village. They will be presenting more progress on that at a future meeting. Their next scheduled meeting is April 26th here in Village Hall at 6:30 p.m. The Beautification Commission has been working over the last several Fridays to present their Brookie Awards to local businesses that have improved the inside and out and really bettered the community with how they're improving on their business. So Brookfield Breakfast, Imperial Oak, and Fill My Jar all received Brookie Awards this year. Lots of great pictures taken, and we happened to time the Imperial Oak Brookie Award with Imperial Oak Spring Break on Friday, so that was fortunate. And got to learn a little bit more about the beers that I'm special that day. So that was fun. And then also they're planning Project Nice, which is April 30th at 8:30 a.m. In Kiwanis Park. And their next meeting is April 12th, tomorrow, at 6 p.m. And that ends my report for real this time.
Thank you very much, Trustee Kaluzny. But the Solid Waste Agency Board of Directors is going to meet this Wednesday. I'll chair that meeting. That meeting will be by Zoom. The full membership meeting and the WCMC meeting will be 2 weeks from Wednesday on the 27th. Our new meeting location is the North Riverside Village Commons instead of the zoo. I'll update the board after that. That ends my reports at this point. I'd entertain a motion to pass the omnibus agenda.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Trustee Cote, second by Trustee Kaluzny. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the items under regular business, I'd entertain a motion to pass an ordinance approving a universal agreement for reimbursing residents for the basement flood prevention program and the repeal of ordinance number 2013-34 basement flood prevention program.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Trustee Cote, seconded by Trustee Kaluzny. Carl, would you like to say a few things at this point?
Yes, good evening, President Garvey and Board of Trustees. Put a small presentation to go over just a brief overview, the options, and the process moving forward. So moving to slide number 1, reminder on November 4th, 2021, staff and board had discussed the basement flood protection program at the budget workshop. Next slide. The basement flood prevention program was budgeted for $300,000 and was to be funded by the recently approved water and sewer rate. Moving forward, the basement flood prevention program was designed to reimburse residents 50% of the cost for 3 types of flood control systems. The first flood control system that is under consideration for reimbursement is the overhead sewer system, which is, if you look at the picture, it's the modification of the internal waste piping to direct the sewer flow out of the main building in a new overhead sewer, which results in the elimination of the gravity sewer below the basement floor. Eligible homeowners would qualify for a 50% cost share up to $5,000 for this option. The next option is the backflow prevention valve with the bypass pump. This is an installation of a backflow prevention valve and bypass pump on the building lateral in an underground vault installed outside the building between the building and the village's main sewer on private property. Eligible homeowners would qualify for 50% of the cost up to $4,000 on this option. And then finally, the last option is the backflow prevention valve only. This is also a valve that's installed on, outside the building, between the building and the village's main sewer on private property. And then the eligible cost sharing would be 50% cost sharing up to $3,000. Moving to the process. So, step one, the resident would complete a permit application package, which would basically include an application form and the signed participation agreement, and then they would have a quote from a registered licensed contractor. I left the word registered out on accident, I apologize. But that would be a registered licensed contractor. And then step two, the village would review the application package and provide approval notification to the resident of moving forward with their flood control installation. On step three, upon approval, the contractor would perform the work. Step four, the village would inspect the work that was performed by the contractor and approve it. Step five, the resident would move forward with providing an invoice and proof of payment from the contractor. Next, step six would be the community development would review the requested reimbursement amount, make sure that everything was eligible for costs would be covered. And then finally, the final phase would be submit to the village manager for final approval for reimbursement to the property owner by the village finance department. So the streamlining of the process through the board or through the universal agreement, we seem to think that this would definitely help the residents benefit in getting reimbursed as fast as possible.
And just to clarify, there was a recent water rate increase, and that was a part of that water main increase, a relatively small part, was meant to fund this part of the program, but the other part of the water main increase was to help fund the other ongoing improvements and water main improvements.
Correct. So yeah, there was a water fund and sewer fund
Okay.
adjustment.
Okay. Do the board members have any questions for Carl at this point?
I have a few, actually. In the brochure that you showed us, and up here it says license and you registered contractor, right? It will say licensed and registered in Brookfield. I think that would be matter to.
Correct.
Okay, and then it says, under one of the items, it said questions that the homeowner should ask prior to doing it, and, are they registered and are they licensed? What is the process for a homeowner to find out if they are truly registered or licensed in Brookfield?
They could, I would say to check with community development. They would have a list of all licensed and registered plumbers for.
So they would contact community development?
Correct.
And then they would be able to list, yes, they are actually licensed and they are actually registered?
Correct.
But they have time to get registered
Sure.
after the quote still, correct?
Right. A plumber who's not registered simply would have to file the paperwork to become registered to work in Brookfield.
And if I'm correct, the plumber is actually, I learned earlier today, is they have theirs through the state, so they don't have a cost for getting licensed in Brookfield, correct? They just have to
I'm
register.
not sure about a cost. There's a cost involved.
Plumbers are bonded with the state, we don't charge them an additional fee.
Okay.
So it's on the recording, plumbers are bonded with the state so that they don't have to pay an additional fee to be licensed here. However, a sewer company would have to pay to be licensed here, and that pay is $150, correct? Okay. And then we don't post the list, am I correct? We can't post the list because that could be construed as an endorsement, right? So we don't post the list, they have to contact Village Hall?
I think we could post the list, we just don't make any recommendations. So if anybody asked, can you please tell me all the licensed plumbers in the village of Brookfield?
Right.
That is a list we could
So
provide.
we could post that then,
But we would
without it being
not, but we would not
construed?
make any recommendations as to
Would we require then, I guess this would be for legal, would we require a disclaimer that this is not an endorsement? But then they could easily go to the website and see who's already registered or,
That's correct. We just can't do anything where we recommend anyone, but in order to perform plumbing work in the state of Illinois, you have to be licensed by the state of Illinois. So that goes back to your earlier point that it doesn't matter about in Brookfield or elsewhere, they have to be licensed by the state. That's a preemption from the state where they license plumbers.
okay.
So if we have a running list, I think we may even had one under the old program where we had plumbers that we previously have known to be licensed.
But a sewage company is different.
They are different. Unless they have a licensed plumber on staff, they're not really allowed to do the work.
They can only do part of the work.
Okay.
We can definitely provide a list, but the residents also, we want to make sure that they know they don't have to pick from that list as long as their plumber is registered by the time of permit issuance. They can use whatever plumber that they'd like as long as they're fully registered and provided.
So maybe publishing a list could be more confusing to the resident, because they might think that they're constrained to that when they could.
That unfortunately would be my concern with answering like the day-to-day calls that I get. So I would say that it might confuse them, but we're happy to do that if that's what the village board would like to see.
If I may, I anticipate that there's going to be communication between the applicant and the village, because the village is going to have to verify that someone's a licensed plumber. So you guys can operate how you prefer, but to me, it would make sense that someone submits who they believe to be a licensed plumber. There's going to be some verification process on the village's side to confirm if they are indeed a licensed plumber.
And before we even issue the permit, they have to be fully registered with the village of Brookfield.
Right. I was just thinking, because, if you're getting work done on your house and you just don't know how far along in the process before they find out, but that's just part of the process at that point. Okay.
Sorry, other questions?
How much did we give previously? How much was the total amount allocated to this program? I know there was multiple waves, but.
The amounts haven't been changed. I did call several plumbers to cross-check the dollar amounts, and we are one of the higher cost-sharing reimbursement communities.
No, I mean,
So-
when we did this in previous years,
Oh,
how
I'm
much
sorry.
how much did we allocate to the program? Do we know?
Earlier, Doug and I were discussing this, and I believe he said, and this is just, I couldn't swear on a stack of Bibles, but I believe he said 100,000 was budgeted back in 2013.
But it went more to around 200,000. I think we added.
We had
to
done
it
that for several years.
First year, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, my only question is there a benefit to the village for someone to install the overhead sewer system versus just the one-way valve, the one-way check valve?
I believe it comes down to your budget.
To the individual budget, but is there a
Yes.
benefit to the village for someone installing that at their residence? Like, we're creating a greater incentive, we're paying more for the overhead sewer installation.
Right.
So we could pay, with our limited resources, we can pay for 3 houses to have an overhead sewer system at $5,000 apiece, or we could cover 5 houses that have a one-way check valve. And I'm just saying, in my mind, it's in the best interest of the village to spread these dollars out across as many households as possible. If there's no benefit for them having an overhead sewer system over a check valve, wouldn't it be better just to?
But there is a benefit to the homeowner to have overhead sewers, and the one and only benefit, and I don't disagree with your premise, but the one and only benefit between this program and this one is that you can use water inside your house during a severe storm event with no fear of backflow. In other words, in an overhead sewer, all of your kitchen, your sinks, your bathrooms, all of that water is coming down into a new sump pit in your basement that gets pumped up high and then drained out. So therefore, you can use your shower, you can wash clothes, you can do those things during a storm event. With this program, with the cheapest alternative, eventually, if it's a heavy storm and there's a sewer discharging event happening, once your internal pipes fill up to this point of this valve, it's going to hit this valve and go backwards. You could be introducing water into your house that way.
Right, no, I understand that. But I'm just saying, if someone wants to put that overhead sewer system in to get those benefits, I would argue, well, that should be on them. It's in the village's best interest to get as many houses under this program as possible. So why would we create anything above 3,000?
So maybe just make it 3,000 for any of the options.
Any option, make it 3,000 to spread this out among as many households as possible.
That's not a bad idea. I get it.
I mean, we're incentivizing people that have the resources to go with an overhead sewer system, which may not be an option whatsoever for anybody. I would argue, if you want to do that, well, that's fine, that's on you, but you're still only getting $3,000. And let's get as many houses protected as possible versus the staggered sum.
Derek, were you looking to say something?
Maybe. I would suggest you look at how much what amount of total funds were used each year. I'm wondering if the 300,000 might cover all of the houses that apply this year, regardless of whether we offer $3,000, $4,000, and $5,000 option. The benefit, so just so everyone knows, overhead plumbing is required now on new houses. So these houses that bring it up to them, that is a higher standard of plumbing. There's a benefit maybe in just improving the overall village. But if that's the case, I understand your point. I might take a quick look at how much you were funding, and especially the last few years, because my impression, I don't have the numbers, but someone said 100,000, and then we added another 100,000
We had done it
year,
for several
maybe
years.
another 100. It might have, the first year was.
Doug's here, so.
Doug, do you recall the numbers the annual figures that were spent on the backflow prevention
In 2013.
in 2013 in the first few years?
I mean, the total spent, the first year, if you're talking just in general dollars, was about, first year we spent 160, I think, and then it just went down after that.
So 160 was the highest.
160 was the highest.
Yeah,
That
that
could
was.
be because we also had run out of funds at that point in time, we told them that we can't do it anymore this year. But the following year was lower.
Might be worth looking into that, because my anticipation is that the 300K might be able to fund all three options, funding options, based on what the total number of applicants you get. We won't know until they come in. Maybe we'll have twice as many as in 13, but that's my recollection from back then.
I mean, Trustee Connor, to your original question and point to bring it up was that, is there any benefit to the village if someone puts in overhead sewers? And I think staff, Tim indicated, well, maybe overall there is a value to the village if people improve their homes in general, but in none of these three programs is there a specific benefit that you could point to the village. So I would just think under that, the person we do the lease program for, there's no direct benefit to the village. So we have to remember the purpose of the program, and if we're funding a program to try and get people to make improvements, some people might, based on their needs, determine that this is it, but if someone wants to make a larger investment in their home, and I think we could revisit the funding structure each year. This year with this amount put in, if we spend it all this year and we see a large portion of it went to people that were requesting a backflow prevention valve only, and we ran out of money to fund those, then maybe we restructure the financial options next year. But I don't necessarily think the test for the funding should be, well, what's the direct benefit to the village? Because none of these directly benefit the village under that analysis. So I'd like to hear from the rest of the board, but that's why I think we should stick with the original. The original program, I think, was somewhat successful, and I think you could talk to some of the people who have done the various step levels over time, give them the option. We don't want to discourage. We're trying to incentivize making this happen, and if we want to incentivize people making a bigger investment in their home, I think it's a conscious decision we can make to do that.
I think if we do that, that's something you can revisit after the first year. When we had done the program before, I think at the conclusion of it, after 3 years or so, we had worked our way through the whole list. So anyone who had applied or was interested was able to get the benefit from it there. And the funding had gone down, and we couldn't afford to continue doing it. But again, the list was down to no one else was applying at that time, I believe. So that 300,000 is more than we had put towards it before. We're talking 60 to 100 households that can benefit from this, depending on which way they go. We do it this way for the first year, and then.
And with the intention, our record keeping is much better. We can say how many people applied for option B, A, B, and C, and we'll know going forward where the demand was, where do we run out. I think we could do that going forward. We really don't have the numbers of the capability to look back and see what was done under this program in the past due to not having the records from back then.
I agree with keeping the tiered for the first year and then reevaluating it afterwards. If it doesn't make sense, then I hope that we can continue this on for a lot of years and just want to manage it the right way. But I think trying it out, and if we have twice as much money in it this year than we did even originally, then I think there should be enough.
But, so this program is meant for today going forward, not for those who put this in over the past 5 years, correct? And that's the point of this. However, if we went down Trustee Conroy's thought process of capping it at 3,000 as the max, regardless of which option you went with, would that then open up funds that we could then retract and go back and talk to people who were stuck in a situation where they had to do this over the past 3 or 4 years?
Trustee Cote, myself and staff, I mean, there was a lot of public comment questions, social media comments about would the board consider going back and doing retroactive payments? And a lot of, I mean, I'll let staff give their recommendation, but a lot of things kind of go against that, in that the ability to verify that the past work, it wasn't permitted and inspected under as the current program requires. There's issues about whether the funding mechanism, because the previous program was governed by an ordinance that was created, and if we didn't appropriate funds under the ordinance, spending money now under this program to go back and do things that weren't appropriated for at the time could possibly be an issue. And the third thing, I think we all want the desire to go back and help people retroactively, but it creates a slippery slope. When we created the program for the first time in 2013, there were some people that spring didn't want to wait for the program to be instituted. I mean, myself and Trustee Ketchmark on the board, there was people that wanted to get it done quicker than later, and they went ahead and did it without waiting for the funding. We didn't do any retroactive reimbursement to those people or the people that had done it in the previous years before we started talking about a program. So that's where it becomes,
I totally understand the slippery slope idea, and you would have to have a cap on years that you go back on, but I don't understand the thought that our inspections and permits would be different, because it's still a sewer, and the sewer is still the same inspection and the same installation that it was done 5 years ago. So I don't know if that part, I believe that part. However, I can see where the slippery slope is, because then you have to decide, am I stopping at 2017, 2016? You know, if you go back 5 years, am I going to go back 6? Do you go all the way back to 2013? So I can get that premise that does cause a difficulty on where you're going to do that cutoff.
and previous to 2013 even, there's people that could want to make a claim under 2013. But sorry, Tim, I should have let you address it, basically.
No, you pretty much, you exactly summarized my concerns. The first thing, I anticipated the question, and I understand the request, understand the, several people have called staff, and I know Megan has talked to several people, and I understand people are frustrated by that. The bottom line is, here we are today, we have the fiduciary responsibility to ensure that, as you've seen through this process, we've carefully planned out how this all needs to take place in a reasonable, pragmatic manner. If we go back and somebody did this, say 2, 3, 4 years ago, well, I don't have the receipt anymore. I don't know if it got inspected. It's very unwieldy. It's very difficult. It would be very difficult to administer that. First question I asked of our finance director is, back when you did this in 2013, as President Garvey already said, I said, did we offer any reimbursements prior to the program starting place? And the answer was no. The thought was, and again, I get the frustration, but there was no program in place prior to that. There was no appropriations made. Therefore, the village didn't have any legal ability to go back and much the same way we are here today. Prior to the board approving this money in this budget, and with the new water rate, there was no program. We didn't have a program. Residents made a responsible choice to put this improvement in their homes. They've had several years now of that protection, and that's great. But our program didn't exist at that point in time. The program ended back in, whenever it was, 2016 or so. And so, as President Garvey said, much quicker than I'm saying, I would not recommend it, that we go back and rebate people before this program.
Just like some of the other programs, the property improvement grant program and things, we've incentivized business to fix up their property. If someone, I'll just stick with the slippery slope thing. And if going back, I mean, separate from the issue of funding permits and the fact that we didn't retroactively apply in 2013 when we did it, I think it creates a dangerous precedent, an administrative logjam for the staff, as disappointing as it is for the residents that took the steps and made the investments. We had the same issue in 2013. We had people that had just done it, And I'm trying to remember the exact timing of it. As we were discussing and trying to work our way through the program, there's people that said, when would the funds be available? And we said this month, and they said, well, I can't wait, I'm gonna go do it already, and we didn't reimburse those people, so.
So another question on that behalf, though. So it's a requirement for new builds if somebody starts stripping down their house and we require it now. Does this mean if a builder comes in and wants to rebuild it, are we offering this to the builders too? Or is this only for residents without tearing down their home?
No, if you are building a new house and therefore is a village requirement, that would not be subject. It's a good point that we should clarify.
We should
in the
clarify that,
brochure.
right? Because how do we know that?
Much like the property improvement program, if you're doing code-required work, that's not,
Right.
you're opening up a new business and you're putting up a new sign as part of that business, you can't apply for the PIP program for that. I would say this is the same thing. That you're building a house that's required by code to do one of these, to do the overhead sewers. That's part of the code, that's part of the building code requirement to build that house.
What about major renovation, like someone that's flipping a house? Is it required after a certain percentage of the house is getting touched, that they have to do the sewer also?
I'm not sure with the MWRD requirement. I'd have to look into it, but I think it's new homes. I don't know that I have not seen a requirement for overhead sewers on a substantial remodel like you're saying.
Okay.
Well, would we then financially help them if they're flipping a house? Does that fall in the same category?
I don't think that matters. If they're not required by the village to do any of this work, it's none of our business what the homeowner plans on doing if they're flipping the house. I don't think that matters to us. So yeah, it would be included in this program.
Would we entertain at least including the language up to $4,000 and up to $5,000? My only concern is that should the demand far outstrip what we're allocated towards this? So on opening day, we have 150 applications, and 20% of those are for the $5,000 amounts. And the thing about this is it becomes almost like an arms race. You're on your block, neighbors 2 doors down on both sides, on each way, get this. Now you're the one that doesn't get it. You just became the low-lying, and you're gonna have a geyser in your basement the next time it rains. Now you need to get it, but you can't get it because the funds aren't there because we've funded 20% with $5,000. I just think if the demand far outstrips our ability to supply everyone that's raising their hands saying they want this, then I think we should go 3,000 to get as many houses as possible initially for the first, month of that this opens up. Again, just so we're not leaving people out because we're financing $5,000 jobs for those that, and then when the people just want 3,000 to get something to protect their basements, and they're told they're out of luck. That would be my only request, that at the very beginning, this could blow up and we get a lot of requests and we're going to outpace. Hopefully that's not the case, but these rain events keep getting stronger and bigger and.
But again, if you put that option out at the beginning and then just have everyone come in, think that, well, if I really want to do the major improvement, but if I don't get the 3,000, they might settle on a smaller job. I mean, this is a fluid program in that we have the option of revisiting it after 1 year. But I think the prudent thing to do is, the program worked when we did it last time, and people, we're incentivizing people to make improvements in their house. And if they're spending more money and doing a bigger project. I mean, again, I go back to none of these you can't necessarily point to a direct benefit to the village. So I don't know, previously why we would just focus on just one option out of the 3 when the 3 are all sound options that people have chosen in the past. And we can review the numbers, 1 month in, 2 months in, 3 months in the year, and make revisions to the program next year or restructure it at any point. But I just don't think you want to discourage people from making the major improvements to their house, and we could determine after the first year what percentage went to this, what percentage went to that, how many applications got rejected at this level because there wasn't funding.
I'm just going to make a recommendation that I completely agree with you, President Garvey, that we should move forward with these 3 options for the first year and see where this program goes. We have the option to change this in the future, but I've been doing sewer work for a long time in my life, from digging the holes and putting them in and doing side jobs and working with sewer contractors. And after talking with Megan, I think what we're going to see, and my prediction is going to see, we're not going to see a lot of overhead sewer system options in this program. It is a big undertaking for a homeowner and a lot of construction on their homes. A lot of people don't want to get that involved. I believe the largest amount of backflow prevention, the options we're going to see is option 3 with the 50% cost sharing to $3,000. Those are the most popular, they're the most cost effective, they're the cheapest, and they work. When I was doing this work, I would say I probably put in, out of these 3 options, 90% of the backflow valves that were installed were those. I got a good feeling that this is how this program's gonna move forward, but if for some reason we do see an overabundance of, even the bypass valve is not, it could become an expensive option, a very costly option. Again, a lot of construction. Homeowners don't really wanna get into that too much, but we can always see what comes out of these, and if we do see an a lot of the expensive systems, maybe we do tweak the money, maybe we tweak the options. That's something we can look forward to after the first year. We analyze the data, we analyze the cost, we'll see where the money's going, and see what's beneficial for the village.
But we're about to hit the heavy rain season anyway.
Right.
We could probably get a status of this in June and see where we are, get a better idea at that point, right?
Yeah.
I think we have to keep in mind what the program is. I mean, we're going to try to help as many residents as we can, just as we had done before in the previous program. That doesn't preclude a resident from, doing this on their own, whether it be, the program was filled up for the year, or they didn't want to wait. I mean, we did have some of that before, as President Garvey mentioned. People have been installing this well before we started a program in 2013. They've installed it since the program stopped. I mean, I don't know that we're looking at this as simply a one-year program. I mean, it could be. We don't know where finances turn. I mean, we stopped it after 3 or 4 years the last time. But we're going to try to help as many people as we can. Residents can still do it on their own, too. This doesn't say you can't put in, an overhead sewer, by not participating in the program. They still have that option.
I'll get to you. There's a resident who wants to, I'll get to, I just want to let him know I'm going to let him make comments. I just want to see if there's any other questions for Carl at this point. Staff.
I'd like to offer some compliments, actually. Looking through the brochure that was put together and all the literature for the residents, it hit on all of the issues that we were concerned about when we last talked about this. It makes it clear that this program is not for seepage issues, it's just for sewer backups. It also makes a point of clarifying that it's necessary to have downspouts disconnected permanently from our sewer systems, which is very important, and I really appreciate that this sort of folds that requirement in to getting the approval, because that can help the whole village as a whole as well. So my compliments on the communication for the residents.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments for Carl at this point? I'm going to allow some public comment here just as an opportunity, and we can go on further debate or comment, but, okay.
Just one typo,
Sure.
I don't know. On the brochure, under important notice, perform is hyphenated.
Yeah, that's an earlier draft that unfortunately got put into the packet, but we've already caught that. We've caught a couple other things as well. That's why in the RBA it talks about that's a draft, and so that is not the final version.
Good.
All right. Carl, do you mind stepping aside here just for a second? Sir, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, thank you. If we could just have your name, please.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Chris Bechtel. I'm a resident here. Not to throw a wrench in the plans that have been laid out, but I was wondering if the board would consider adding a fourth option to allow some coverage for alley paving under the flood control plan, because for a lot of us, especially right next to the creek, the alley does lead to backyard flooding, which leads to basement flooding. It would provide a benefit to the village as well, getting hopefully more alleys paved, getting more sewers in there, cut down on the cost of grading the alleys multiple times a year. So I know, again, this plan is far along, and I don't want to throw a wrench in that, but something I want to bring up to the board.
No, and we know alley flooding, alley ponding is an issue. I mean, it's a very large issue, but I think the recommendations from staff and the engineer, I mean, the amount of money that, if you're talking about like supplementing the residents' share of the special assessment that we do, we haven't had a lot of petitions come forward in recent years, and, we have the program out there that they could come forward, but we don't feel that would make enough of an impact to move forward on those alleys. And with the immediate, the issues come in with paving the alley in terms of they cause other drainage issues. If the water is not in the alley, it's somewhere else. So and we felt this was the best use of the program at this time, and we're always looking for options to try and move forward with alley paving as we go forward. But as I mentioned, publicly recently, I mean, the alleys are very, very important. But we've just kind of faced a new, unfunded mandate to replace all the lead service lines in the village over the course of the next 20 to 25 years at a cost of over $44
million, I believe, is.
$44 million. That's something we have to do by law. And then we have water mains, 50-something% of our water mains are over 100 years old. So this board has kind of made the decision to focus most of our infrastructure money on the requirements of the lead service line replacement, as well as the replacement of the 100-year-old water mains going forward, which is going to be a 20 to 30 to 40-year program also. And we'll always look for opportunities. But right now, I think the alley paving is going to have to go ahead with the special assessment rate. And then we're open to reviewing it every year in terms of if this program runs its course and there's not a lot of demand for it, maybe we could allocate some money to incentivize an alley paving program. But we want to review what the demand's like for this program going forward, I think.
Okay.
Thank you for coming out, and appreciate your point.
President Garvey, if I could, I
Sure.
mean, also to keep in mind, the village does pick up almost a quarter of the cost of the alley paving. So if there is a special assessment, the village pays for the engineering, the legal, which, what was it, 23% or?
About 25%, that's correct, yes.
If your block is interested, just contact the village manager's office, and we can help you get through this process.
Yeah, we've actually got a petition.
Oh, good.
With 50%, a little bit over 50%
Good.
so far, so.
Okay.
Again, I appreciate you giving me the time on, like you said, if it's not a major cost, I thought maybe it'd be something to further incentivize it to get more people on board, so that's all I had.
Definitely look at something going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Is there anyone else in the public that wants to talk about this? Sir, if you would like to come back up, I promised you that we would discuss it, and you've heard a little bit about it. I didn't want to go
Sounds
through
like
that.
I'm out of luck.
Well, I didn't want to go through that whole explanation when you were standing up initially, because
No.
I wanted a chance, but that has something we did consider.
I understand the slippery slope. One thing I would say, though, in 2013, the first time, you had never done this before, so going backwards from there would be a stretch. I moved in 2016. My plumber is a Brookfield resident. He mentioned the village finances this from time to time, check with them. I did. We're out of money. So I held off till 2020. After 3 floods, I couldn't hold off anymore. I had them do the work. I have all the paperwork. It was inspected. So that's just,
And I mean, but as I explained in 2013, there were people, as we were creating the program, that were considering doing it, that did it while we were creating the program, and we didn't go back and reimburse them, just because it does, and I
understand.
think everyone up here would like to help you. It's just we have to make the conscientious decision. I mean, and then it creates a administrative, process for the staff and delays other things. So it's like, unfortunately, I think you're going to be.
I knew it was a long shot.
Well, but I appreciate you. You're not the only one. Other people have raised the point, but
Yeah.
I appreciate
And
you
it's-
coming up.
I'll tell you, the cheaper option works. That's what I had put in.
I was
It's
just
already
gonna ask.
saved me several times.
Oh, good.
I can't imagine many people going with overhead sewers. That's a lot of work.
So you did the basic
Right,
backflow preventer?
right.
Okay. Well,
That's
I was just
yeah.
going to ask you that, so thank you for sharing that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming out. All right, any other more questions or comments from the board? I just wanted to get those, I'm sorry, no one else I don't see anyone else in the audience that wants to comment. Direction from the board? I mean, we have a motion and a second on the ordinance. If there's no further comment, I'll ask for a roll call vote on it. Okay, hearing no other comment, we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And I think staff has heard, we really like to keep good numbers on this and get update on the progress and where, where the applications are coming in for which item, which are approved, and if we, run out where the demand was and things, so we can reevaluate these decisions and restructure or tweak the program going forward.
There you go, back to streets.
Thank you to everyone and staff that worked on this. As I agree with Trustee Hendricks, the materials were very well done, and a lot of information is in them, and let's see how many people we can help with this going forward. Okay, moving on to the next item, I'd entertain a motion to pass a resolution to enter a local public agency agreement for federal participation for the Central Council of Mayors 5-year program in consideration of a resolution for the use of motor fuel tax funds.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Trustee Ketchmark, second by Trustee Cote. Derek or Tim, you want to just summarize the need for this? The board has an explanation, but for public explanation?
Sure. Thank you, President Garvey. I'd like to give just a quick background on the project before we get into the items for approval. This is for improvements to Shields Avenue from Maple Avenue east to Custer Avenue. General scope of work is resurfacing the street. We are going to do spot curb and sewer repairs. Village is to receive $815,000 in federal funds towards construction and construction engineering. I would like to highlight, this goes back to January 2021 when this board approved engineering agreements for 3 resurfacing projects. It was Shields, Washington, and it also was for Brookfield Avenue and a 3700 block of Grand. We told you that we had been told by the Central Council of Mayors that there was a chance to get contingency funding. You chose to do authorized engineering, and we prepared shelf-ready plans. And lo and behold, a year later, we are able to get, we're slipping into their typical 2022 program, but we're able to get this project funded ahead of time. This project wasn't funded in the initial 5-year program, but because we're ready with engineering, we're able to get these funds. The project is currently down at IDOT. It's on the April 29th letting, which is a bid opening. Typically takes 6 to 8 weeks for IDOT to award the contract, have the pre-construction meeting. So we anticipate an early July start on this project, and it'll be done by September or October. And what we have for you tonight for approval, I'd like to cover agenda item 2 and 3 in the explanation. We have what they call a local agency agreement. This is a standard IDOT agreement that sets forth cost sharing between the Village of Brookfield and IDOT. IDOT is picking up 80% of the construction engineering and the construction costs. Second thing we have is a construction engineering agreement. And then we have 2 resolutions. One resolution is a resolution from IDOT whereby the village just acknowledges that it's guaranteeing it'll provide the funding for its share of the project. And then the second resolution we have is a MFT resolution, which talking to the finance director, he wants to use MFT funds for this. This allows you to take funds out of your MFT account.
Thank you, Derek. So once again, by us having the engineering done, ready, in place, I mean, another municipality or project dropped out because they weren't ready or didn't have the funding, so is
That's
that correct?
And if I could, and Washington, I will be here in 6 weeks roughly. They also found funding for resurfacing Washington Avenue from Kevin to Prairie. That is already down at IDOT, and it'll be on the June letting. Construction start in early September, be done before the end of the year. So we were able to get funding for 2 of the 3 projects.
I mean, just on this project alone, you're looking at a $652,000 basically grant or federal funding for a project that we needed to do because we were ready to go and had the engineering, so. Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
Actually, this is excellent foresight by village staff to bring this forward. So we were prepared, so it saves, doesn't it save a little bit more than $650 in the end?
Yeah,
Just a little bit more. Either way, though, but because of the foresight, this is saving us, close to $750,000, just being prepared to throw this down ahead of time.
Yeah, Brookfield, I'm going to talk a little about our SDP applications later in the meeting, but yeah, the village has always been very proactive applying for funds. You have received more funding from the Central Council of Mayors over the last 20 years than any of the other 14 villages that are in with us. And we're the only village that I'm aware of that you chose to move ahead with this engineering with the chance of getting some contingency funding, and you got, we truly didn't get contingency funding for Shields. We had a project drop out, so we got the regular annual funding. This Council of Mayors gets about $3.5 million a year. Washington got $400,000 of that leftover engineering, so that was the extent of the council's budget for this year, and the remainder of that funding for Washington came from contingency funding. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the resolution under item 2. Could we have a roll call on that, please?
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I'd entertain a resolution to enter into agreement for the furnishing of professional construction engineering services for the Shields Avenue resurfacing project, Maple to Custer with Hancock Engineering.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Trustee LeClere, second by Trustee Kaluzny. As Derek explained, this is related to the previous item. It's the engineering agreement with Hancock Engineering. Any questions or comments on this item? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask that we deal with item 5 first, because item 4 won't be needed if item 5 doesn't pass. So I'm going to ask that we jump to item 5 and that we entertain a motion to pass a resolution to award a contract for the 2022 street improvement project to J. Narduli Concrete Incorporated in the amount of $3,065,424.55 and approval of change order number 1 in the amount of $102,000.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Trustee Ketchmark, second by Trustee Kaluzny. Derek, do you want to address the nature of the bid opening and your recommendations?
Sure. So normally we come to you. This has in the past been a simple recommendation. We have a very unique bidding climate out there now, so I put together some slides, kind of explain what has happened during our bid process. We only obtained one or received one bid. Start out just quick overview of the project. We have an exhibit up here on the screen. Shows the streets to be improved, 3 streets in Area 2, 3 blocks of street in Area 2 to be improved are Arthur Avenue from Monroe up to 31st Street. These are the only sections of pavement rated a 2, which was our lowest rating in the street survey we just completed. So these were priority streets. And then the other streets, which are all located in Area 5, we have 7 more blocks of street. And those are streets that had a pavement condition rating of 3, but the curb and gutter condition rating was 1. So they were priority streets for us to improve. Total of 3 blocks in Area 2 and 7 more in Area 5. We have a total of 10 blocks proposed to be improved for this project. If you could switch slides. And then I wanted to remind everybody, I'm sure you all recall, we were here for a few board meetings. We had some good discussion on different options for widening Grant Avenue from Grand Boulevard to Prairie. This shows the typical section. We're gonna go ahead and include a 7-foot parking lane on the north and the south side of the street. It leaves a 15-foot through lane, and because there's no parking on the north side, it ends up adding 10 parking spaces to those 2 blocks of street. This is a plan view of the same section, just shows the striped parking on each side of the street between Grand and Prairie. Summary of the bid opening, we opened bids on March 30th. We had 10 contractors obtain bidding documents. That's a pretty typical number in past years. However, we only received 1 bid. In past years, typically receive at least 3 and somewhere 3 to 5 or 6 bids. Our engineer's estimate of cost for the work was $2,970,000. Low bid came in at $3,065,000, which is $95,000 over our bid and 3.2% above the estimate. So immediately after the bid opening, we had anticipated getting a typical number of bids, 3 to 5, with 10 contractors picking up. We were aware of some of the uncertainty in material prices, but we wanted to call everyone, why only one bidder? So one of them is the uncertainty in material prices, and I'll go into that a little more in the next slide, the details of that. Second reason is the contractors that typically bid our work are either going to be an asphalt paver, a concrete crew, or a sewer and water main. And for those guys to be a general, they typically like to have about 50% of the work fall under their umbrella. It makes it worth it for them to have the administrative portion of the job. As you can see, this job, we have 35% concrete, 30% sewer and water main, and then 15% asphalt paving, and then 20% miscellaneous items like landscaping and pavement striping. What it did is it really ruled out, I talked to the asphalt paving contractor, one of them who got the job 2 years ago, he said, I just want to be a sub. So we didn't get any asphalt paving contractors that wanted to bid this project. It just wasn't worth them providing a superintendent, doing all the administrative work. Even with the concrete and the sewer, it's closer to 50%, but it's still, I think that might have affected some that said, maybe not for me, I just want to be a sub. I will say though, that's a reason, but over the last few years of the referendum streets, we haven't had 50% under any one trade. It's been 40 to 45%. This one came out a little lower than even that. And then we did one of the bidders, it just was the timing of the year for them. They mentioned that it was a concrete contractor, and he said he wanted to look at the job, but his estimator was on vacation. It's something we just can't plan for. And then the reasons for the higher pricing over our estimate of costs. And the biggest reason is uncertainty in material pricing. I think we've all seen it. Fuel charges are much higher. We see higher gas prices at the pump. Imagine trucks delivering stone, concrete, even material. Ductile iron pipe comes from out of state. They're paying more in gas, and it's reflected in the material prices. And it fluctuates very rapidly. The other thing is, I mentioned it, a lot of it's due to the war in Ukraine to increase this. They are the second, Ukraine and Russia are the second highest steel producing nations in the world behind China. So right now we're not getting steel from them, and steel prices are up 10 to 15%. So we're seeing that particularly in our ductile iron pipe. Material suppliers are also unwilling to lock in their prices. And I think this may be the biggest impact to our bids. In the past, when contractors would bid, they called their material supplier to get a quote for, let's say, ductile iron pipe, or it might be for the liquid asphalt in the asphalt. And they'll guarantee those prices. As long as you order within 2 to 3 months, we can guarantee this price, because the prices weren't fluctuating that much in past years. This year, there's a great fluctuation, so I've seen notices on the ductile iron pipe. I've heard about the asphalt where they refuse to guarantee it. It's going to be priced the day of delivery. So what the bidders are doing is they're looking what the increases have been, and they're projecting what they may be by the time they order their materials. They're also adding a fuel surcharge. So again, today, if the average price of gas is $4.50, they indicate that if gas is at $5, here's what your surcharge will be for a load of ductile iron pipe or for a load of concrete. So there's some unknowns now for the bidders. And just as an example, again, I did talk to the asphalt paving contractor that bid our job. He said he provided the quote. He's a subcontractor to the general that was our one bidder. And he said, I quoted it on Monday to him for the Wednesday bid. I had called him Wednesday afternoon. He goes, I'm preparing a bid for Thursday. I just called. Asphalt went up to where I had to add $5 a ton. Asphalt's about $85 a ton. Normally he added $5 a ton 2 days later. So it's that immediate fluctuation that they're having to deal with. We did talk to the low bidder. We asked them if there was any sort of, I guess, possibility of negotiation. And he did state that their prices were conservative, that they didn't know what to guess on the bid, Said if you're able to award at the April 11th meeting, that's shortly after I provided my bid. He went back, it took him about 2-3 days. This wasn't an off-the-cuff thing. He actually added up his price. He said he felt he could provide a credit of $102,000, or maybe a better word is a reduction in price of $102,000, because he could lock in those prices. And we confirmed that today, and he still felt that was something that he could provide. With that change order, if that's approved, the resulting bid would be about $7,000, or just 0.2% below our engineer's estimate. Wanted to outline the three main options as I see them. One is to accept the bid with the change order. 2, we can reject all bids and rebid in April. That would allow us to award at a May 9th board meeting. I will tell you, I wouldn't recommend that, because nothing's changed in the market since we bid it. I think we still have those fluctuations. However, there's a chance you could get a lower bidder. But part of it is how much risk they're willing to take. We get different bids every time we bid, but right now the market hasn't changed. And the other option is to reject all bids and rebid in fall of '22 or February of '23, with the construction take place in '23. Concern there is we are going to see a labor increase in June that we'll have to factor in, the bidders will factor in, and I can't predict what the materials will be. They may very well come down. I just can't predict when the market returns to normal. Wanted to outline some risks if we don't award. Again, we could receive higher bids. If we bid in April, we could receive higher bids if we wait till 2023. We did have a water main replacement on 26th Place. The reason that's out there is because there have been fairly frequent breaks out there. We'd be at risk, if we wait till next year, we'd be at risk until over the next winter of having more breaks. We encounter emergency repair costs. There is a cost to the lost water. I did want to point out, there is a benefit to the Grant Avenue improvements. We're widening and adding parking spaces. If we hold off till next year, we won't get those improvements this year. And the other payments, which again, are priority payments, albeit they're not like they were prior to the referendum. They're not in that poor condition, but they are our next streets for improvement. They'll stay in that same condition for another year. And lastly, the pavement patching. So we include about $100,000 of concrete pavement patching and asphalt pavement patching. Some of that goes out to, we use that to repair where PW does water main breaks. We get a good price because we bid such a high number. If we choose not to award bid or go out to bid the next year, we have a couple options. Either PW tries to do that, or we let that as a contract. It'll be a smaller contract and likely higher prices because of that. So ultimately, after considering all that, and this wasn't an easy recommendation for us like in past years, but we're recommending that the village award the contract to the low bidder and process change order number 1.
Thank you, Derek, for all the due diligence. And is Narduli a company that we've dealt with before that is satisfactory?
They are. Actually, and their sub-team, Suburban General and Lindahl Asphalt, I believe that group of contractors has had our contract 3 of the last 4 years and done good work for us. So.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
I do appreciate that you guys went back to try to talk them down on the price and successful in that. That was.
Would we ever consider this, I deal with this a lot with 1- and 2-year contracts with some of my accounts, and what we've started doing is, given the fluctuation in material prices, is you identify the spot price the day of the bid and allow X% variation for every 5% or 10% decrease to be reviewed on either a monthly or quarterly basis, just to allow for that fluctuation and to give some of these potential bidders relief and incentivize more bidders to participate. Is better outcome for the village overall. Would we consider including things like that to
Yes, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think that's something that we could look at. They may be able to be more comfortable bidding aggressive, and like you point out, maybe it just, if nothing else, gets us more bidders. This is kind of a relatively new situation. I will tell you, for our company, we've seen some bids come in at pretty typical prices. We've also seen some that are just higher than normal. But if we rebid, I would be talking to staff about doing something like that.
Okay. Or even just new bids coming forward is.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Derek, you pointed out the ratio of the work on this caused some of the limitations in the bids. And is that ratio of the concrete to asphalt to sewer work different than some of the projects we've done in the past?
It's a little different, and I think I had 35% for concrete and 30% sewer and water. I would tell you, in past years, it might have been 45% for the high, whichever one was higher, which can differ by project, and 35% for the second highest trade. There's not much we can do. I think I listed all the things that affected. That's one that I heard, and actually I was hearing it from the asphalt guys who had 15% in particular, but that's probably, out of the 4 or 5 reasons, 4th or 5th. I think it's the fluctuation.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, questions or comments from the board? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now, going back to item 4, I'd entertain a motion to pass a resolution to enter into agreement for the furnishing of professional construction engineering services for the 2022 street improvement project with Hancock Engineering.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Trustee Cote, second by Trustee Ketchmark. Any questions or comments on this? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Derek. Managers report, Tim?
Thank you, President Garvey. 2 items for tonight. First item, we are getting ready for summer, as I think Trustee LeClere mentioned regarding concerts. I think you were referring to the concerts out here at Kiwanis Park. We're also planning on shutting down Grand Boulevard in the downtown for the last weekend of June, July, August, and September. Hosted putting up a stage, allowing outdoor dining, and trying to create a fun atmosphere in our downtown. Hosted a meeting this morning, invited every Grand Boulevard business to come, much like I've done this will be the 3rd year now we've done this. And the purpose of the meeting was just to attract and allow feedback and have a conversation with businesses. Do they like this? Any problems with it? We had the lowest turnout today. Only 2 businesses showed up. Both were in favor of this. Both thanked the village for doing it. So unless I hear otherwise from the village board this evening, we are proposing and planning on going forward with a very similar setup to last year. A couple of tweaks perhaps, but basically the same type of setup. The first closure would take place on Friday, June 24th, and then that weekend, the 24th to the 26th, the street would be closed through traffic. After that, the next closure would be July 29th to 31st. Went through again this morning with the board had previously approved the standards for outdoor furniture and umbrellas and so forth. No one had a problem with it. So all in all, I would say it was a positive meeting, positive discussion. Cindy Klima, our Economic Development Coordinator, was here. She's going to follow up with some of the restaurants and bars that were not here to ensure that they are aware of the process. I think they all know this, but the standards and so forth. So I thought that was a very productive discussion. Any questions on that? Second of all, we've talked a lot about, and I think President Garvey, you're exactly right. The village board has been very proactive about leveraging our local funds to get a surface transportation program funding from the federal government. And as Derek said, Brookfield is the most aggressive town in our sub-region getting that. And it's a smart way to go. As somebody had mentioned tonight, we've got to do these streets anyways. eventually, we might as well try to get 80% paid for by the federal government. The board has been very proactive about that. Our village engineer has been very diligent and proactive about pursuing it. So I thought it might be a good evening to turn it over to Derek and provide an update on recent STP applications that we have made using the contingency, that's the right word, or bypass process of the West Central Municipal Conference.
Sure. Thank you, Tim. So I start out with just quick background. So we talk about the Kent Central Council of Mayors. That's where we get our federal funding for our collector route improvements. There's a list. We have 15 municipalities in the Central Council of Mayors. And as you can see, they're all local surrounding us. But that's the communities right now that's comprise the Central Council of Mayors. And that's who you could look at as being in competition for federal funding for our collector route projects. So the Central Council of Mayors has a call for projects every 2 years. They started in March 2020, and I think as you're aware, we applied for several projects that year. They had another call for projects in March of 22. We came before the board. You approved applications for 3 resurfacing projects. The funding is available in 2026 to 2027. And as I mentioned, we submitted applications for 3 new projects. We also resubmitted applications for 2 projects. Any projects that were applied for in 2020 that didn't receive funding, you need to reapply. So we went ahead and reapplied for those projects. Quick summary of the 3 new projects. We have Maple Avenue resurfacing. I'll go over limits in a minute, but it's $1.36 million in federal funding. Prairie Avenue resurfacing, $1.23 million in federal funding, and then the Washington Avenue resurfacing, $678,000 in federal funding. This is an exhibit, so just to review, and again, it's a little small on the screen, but you know where Maple Avenue from 31st Street to Brookfield Avenue, it's shown, thank you, Tim, in purple. The second project we applied was Prairie Avenue in yellow. It's shown from Brookfield Avenue north to 31st Street. And the third is Washington Avenue shown in orange, and that's from Prairie Avenue to Gulf Road. So those are the 3 new resurfacing projects that we applied for. We also resubmitted for 2 projects. Again, we originally applied in March 2020. The 2 projects were the Ogden Avenue corridor improvements. Quick little update. We did receive funding for Phase 1 engineering. Staff will be going out for selection of a consultant in April, probably selecting in May. And funding is available starting in October. So whichever consultants is selected, we'll start work in October, November on the Phase 1 report for Ogden Avenue. I'm going to stay on that a little bit. That is a major project for Brookfield. Tim spearheaded a little when he started. He said, that's my #1 priority. We met over the first year as staff, came up with the scope of work, and that's what allowed us to apply for funding in 2020. It's currently estimated at a $20 million project. It includes new curbs, new sidewalks, new brick pavers, includes brick paver crossings at all the lighted intersection, new signalization. We're going to study widening at each of the signalized intersections. We all know Eberly needs some work done there. It's got a new storm sewer contemplated. Again, we're going to study all of this. We'll find out if it gets included as all of the quote-unquote older water main. We have some 12-inch newer water main, but all the older water main would be replaced, and new pedestrian and roadway lighting. So it's a large project, probably biggest project in Brookfield history, and we will be getting started on it this fall. Phase 1 will probably take about 2 years to complete. And what we did is we applied for Phase 2 engineering, for funding for Phase 2 engineering, which we anticipate we'll get in 26 or 27. Second project that we reapplied for was Brookfield Avenue resurfacing. That also includes resurfacing the 3700 block of Grand, which is the business district. We lumped that in because that portion of Grand is ready for resurfacing. And we applied for construction and construction engineering for $1.5 million. You did in January of 2021 approve the design engineering, so that's about at 70% completion. We'll have those plans ready in time for any time that the Central Council of Mayors has contingency funding. And again, I'll go quickly through this, but in light blue is Brookfield Avenue and a 3700 block of Grand. Brookfield starts from Prairie, runs east to Woodside, and then it kind of zigzags up to Washington because it has to have a logical terminus. It has to end at a collector route. So part of Woodside, 200 feet of Parkview, and about 400 or 500 feet of Gulf are considered a collector route and would be eligible for resurfacing. And then Ogden Avenue is shown in light green at the bottom of the screen, and that's the full length of the village from Eberly Avenue east to Custer Avenue.
And you mentioned Burlington.
Yeah, and so I didn't mention, Tim's right. So in purple, he's floating over Burlington. We can give an update. So we did receive funding for that. It's scheduled for calendar year 2024. We're currently working on a phase 1 report. Probably have some public meetings here, either May, June, July. But we're scheduled for construction funding in 2024. Will come probably later this year. We need to go through a design engineering. So in 22 and through 23, we'll be doing design engineering. Burlington is being improved from Prairie, going west to Du Bois. And then again, because it has to end at a logical termini, 1 block of Du Bois is classified as a collector to where it meets Ogden. I will say there's also storm sewer improvements from Maple East, and it includes going all the way to the creek with the new storm sewer and a new outfall into the creek. So right now we're contemplating resurfacing east of Prairie, even though that's not classified as a collector. If we're going to tear it up with some sewer, the pavement's ready, where we would go ahead and resurface that street. Yeah, summary of funding, thank you. So all in all, with the 3 new applications and the 2 new reapplications, it amounts to $6.1 million in federal funding that we applied for. I mentioned the funding would be for 26 and 27. However, the 4 resurfacing projects, the 3 new projects, and then Brookfield and 3700 Grand, if the board chooses to go ahead with the design engineering, have them shelf ready, there's a chance you can get shelf contingency funding in 23, 24, 25. I've talked to the WCMC. There's a couple requirements they need to meet, and one of them is they have to have all their money allocated. That means all the projects they schedule for that year have to be out for bid, at least on an IDOT letting. They don't think they'll be ready early enough in 23, so we may not get, the whole council may not be eligible to get contingency funding in 23, but he felt in 24 we could. That's when we're doing Burlington. We control most of the schedule of that funding, so we'll get out the bid on time, obligate all the money, and I think I would certainly look at Brookfield Avenue and 3700 block of Grand. Tim has promised me by the end of 23 the bridge will be done and we can resurface.
I was gonna ask, back on this slide, will the bridge be done at that point?
The bridge will be done this year. So we wanted, it's a good news thing to me, and we wanted to come share that with you, is that that's what we've applied for. That's 5-6 years worth of funding we're looking at.
This is my report, so I get to say the final word. I do want to compliment Derek and Hancock. Really, he's the one that comes to me all the time. Hey, Tim, here's an opportunity. I come to the board, and the board grants it. And that's the way local government should work, quite honestly. He's the expert. I'm not stupid enough to say no, and you're smart enough to say yes. And we leverage these local 20% funds, and we get over $6 million in federal funds. I mean, that's smart government, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
I agree. Derek, thank you and staff for bringing this forward. I mean, so this discussion tonight, what we're doing, in 2026, 2027, who's ever sitting up here is going to be awarding bids for projects, and it was because of the planning we did in 2021 and 2022. So we've been very successful in that over the years, and it's, we talk about it as federal grants and federal matches, and, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy to take the money and get the money, but What we have to remember is this is our residents' money anyway. It's, it's the federal government giving us a grant back, but these are the taxes they get from our residents anyway. So we're getting more of our share of our residents' money back spent here in our town, so, and that's what we gotta keep doing. That's the recipe. And then that frees up the money for us to do the other projects, the local side streets, the water and sewer projects, the alleys and things going forward. That's the recipe for getting these things done, so. Comments from the board?
Great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that ends the items we have on the village board agenda, so at 7:55 PM, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the village board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by trustee Cote, second by trustee Kaluzny. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee LeClere?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Okay, the board meeting's adjourned at 7:55. We just need a minute or